It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute.
Starring Ray Longo. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Woo! Oh, man.
Wow.
Wait, you see the shirt?
I see the shirt.
Look at that.
I see the
Yeah,
headset.
we'll take it.
So you got a camera, you got a microphone, you got a headset.
Yeah.
Got a haircut, I think, too.
Oh, I don't know about that, Ken.
No, yeah, I feel I got to start wearing a hat, I think. That's the answer.
So I need you to be completely truthful with me right now, and we appreciate you joining us every week. The star of the show, Ray Longo, at Ray Longo MMA 9358 on Instagram, at Ray Longo MMA on X. How hard was it for you to get set up this morning? I really need to know.
No, it wasn't hard. I mean, it was as hard as logging into my email, which that could be a problem sometimes.
So are you in your office right now?
I'm in my den. Yeah,
in the den. How does your wife feel about you overtaking the den with this podcast setup?
She loves it.
She loves it.
She loves it. Yeah.
She likes those twice annual checks that come in that need to be bigger.
Yeah, no. She's got plenty of her own money. Trust me.
All right, good. Well, Jason Anik, make a note. We'll make Ray's bonus a little bit smaller this year. So I
said she has money. I didn't say I have money.
I said share it with you. That's good. So I was just going to bring up a comparison between Mackenzie Dern and Brian Ortega, and there have been a few different knocks on Mackenzie Dern, maybe a little bit sloppy on the feet, but some have questioned her offensive wrestling. And Brian Ortega has a lot of different takedowns and trips in his arsenal, and that allows him to get the fight to a grappling realm where he can realize success against most men in this division. So a lot of fans and pundits have wondered aloud, Kenny and Ray, why Mackenzie Dern maybe hasn't worked more or shown more when it comes to her offensive wrestling. Because, dude, if she gets the fight there, you know, more often than not, it's going to be caution flammable for the opposition, you know?
Common sense to me. I don't know. What was the question? I mean, I agree with what you said, but why isn't she doing it?
Well, Kenny, I don't know if you have anything on that, just Ortega's ability to seemingly get the fight to the ground against guys who he should be able to take down versus Mackenzie Dern not always realizing consistency when it comes to that part of her game.
Wait, let me jump in for a second. Because Rodriguez's kryptonite always was the takedowns and being on bottom. I mean, Frankie Edgar, did it to him a while back. I agree with everything Kenny was saying while I was, waiting in the back. It's just, how do you not correct that over 5 years? Like, that's all you should be working on. Like, I had a guy lose because he couldn't stop the takedown. I said, don't ever hit the pads again until you fix this problem. I think the answer where I'm going is people do what the fuck they want to do, what they like to do, not what they have to do. And that, I think it comes down to just being that simple. You know what I mean? So, these guys get there, they get in a groove and they just run it out. I mean, but there is a game plan and he knows what he has to work on. Everybody knows what he has to work on. Why he's not working on it, or maybe he couldn't get it. Maybe that's just not his thing and he's incapable of getting it. Maybe that's a possibility. I mean, we used to work with Luke Como back in the day a lot on takedown defense, and he just never really could stop the takedown, but he had a great MMA guard, so he wasn't really taking damage. So it was a different time back then, but now it's, what you have to do. You just know. And your point on Mackenzie Dern is 100% correct. That's what she should be doing, getting a wrestling coach and just wrestle. Even if it's 6 months, it'll go a long way. You know what I mean? It really will.
I think Ray's spot on. Now, I think the reality is that wrestling sucks. Wrestling is hard.
100%.
Wrestling is painful.
Yes.
Wrestling is humiliating. And, a lot of guys don't want to get in the wrestling room and just work on that aspect. Especially if you're kind of a grappler and you're used to doing certain things a certain way, like, let's say, just jumping to your back and being content there and thinking, well, I'm going to just submit him and do this and do that. It doesn't work that way. It is a huge aspect of mixed martial arts. And again, a lot of people want to do the sexy stuff. They don't want to do the hard stuff. And if you don't want to do the hard stuff in your game, you will be exposed. We've all been there. It's one thing to work on it and just not be good enough. That happens too. No question about it. But to me, when I look, Ray intelligently referenced that fight against Frankie Edgar. How long ago was that Frankie Edgar fight?
Yeah.
And we're seeing the exact same thing. Like, we're not seeing these major jumps in the game. And listen, just because Yair goes out there and submits, gets a quick triangle against someone, you're like, wow, he's way better. But what is it like when he doesn't get that? Like, it's in the transition and it's in the positional game where you need to make your gains. And to me, I just didn't see that. So that's a little concerning. And again, you look at a guy like Bilal, who comes from the same camp as Yair, right? I mean, they train with the same guy. Yeah. I mean, Bilal is a dude who is as disciplined as they come. He's one of the smartest fighters in the game. And he only uses his toughness if he needs to, right? And I think for Yair, I don't know. I just don't see that same approach. And they're from the same camp, but I don't see that same discipline. I don't see that same kind of sticking to strategies, game planning on the level of a Bilal. And you could just kind of see the difference in how people approach the game. And it's pretty apparent, I think.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is you go to your back and you triangle the guy because you think you're going to do that to everybody. Right. And that's where the issue comes in. Then it takes you, before you know it, 2 years goes by. I will say this, like, that's what the one thing I love about Merab, he exemplifies win or learn. I mean, the corrections we made with him at the beginning, one fight he lost, he got stuck in the mount. That wasn't going to happen again. He just went right back and corrected it. Ricky Bandejas, he fought Ricky, and Ricky took him down over and over again. That's when he started correcting his wrestling. And that's why he's got that bond with Aljo, because he couldn't get away with that with Aljo when they sparred. And he thought, he was a mad hatter, but even that wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? And Aljo, that's why he's got the respect for Aljo. Aljo really tightened up that guy's wrestling game, and he should never fight him because, Aljo put a lot of time in with that. That's why I think you see Merab always, giving Aljo credit, because that's what happened. Aljo really tightened up his wrestling game. And now you got a guy carrying a gold medal winner across the octagon and talking to Mark Zuckerberg, one of the richest guys in the fucking world. This is what I mean, but it's not an accident. That's what I'm trying to say. He never, ever lost a fight and didn't make the corrections. Go back and look at his fight with Frankie Science. I mean, what do you have? 14 takedowns, but he was flying over his back, no control. Yeah. He was crazy. Just look at his progression going up. Look at it. He tightened everything up. Still a ways to go in a lot of areas, but when you put, dedication and animosity and, killer instinct and the enjoyment of fighting, like he's not going to back away from something he doesn't like to do. He's going to attack it and get it to where he doesn't like that feeling of being taken down. So,
it's amazing to harken back to those early training sessions between Merab and Aljamain Sterling, right? Hard work and dedication, right? Floyd Mayweather, say what you want about him, but few were working harder, especially in his prime. And I do think the Mad Hatter is actually a great nickname for Merab Dvalishvili, but he's the machine, and that one's probably better. Kenny, real quick. So I remember when Kenny started working on his wrestling with Sean Gray at Boston University, and he would come to ESPN and be like, yeah, I just should have been doing this way sooner. And it's just hard to sort of close a gap when, Kenny's playing soccer competitively at a very high level for much of his life and doing jujitsu, but not really wrestling. Like, Kenny, I've had conversations with Carla Esparza and Henry Cejudo just about their own wrestling maintenance, right? Never mind the jujitsu maintenance. Nothing fun about some of those things. But if you think for a second that Carla Esparza doesn't maintain her wrestling chops, otherwise it goes away.
There's no question about it. I think you have these perishable skills. Everything in combat is you have a perishable skill. If you're not doing it every single day, then you lose it. It's not one of those things like riding a bike. You learn and then you're good. You will learn it very, very quickly. You will learn very, very quickly that you have to be working on it all the time. And for me, in my case, it's like, hey, my wrestling's holding up. I'm doing good against some of these guys. I'm doing okay. Like, I'm submitting some of these guys, or, I'm taking a lot of these guys down. Well, that still may not be good enough because maybe you're not training with the best wrestlers you could find. So you got to go out and find the best guys that you can. And then you will find out, hey, there's levels to this game. So putting yourself in those uncomfortable spots, training with different people, new people as much as you can, getting the hardest guy in the room, working it to it's one thing. Let's say you're working striking, for example, but you're working striking against wrestlers and you're like, I'm the man, dude. I'm killing everybody on the feet. It's like, no. Go do that against the best striker in the room.
Yeah.
Do your jiu-jitsu against the best guy on the ground. Do your wrestling against the best wrestler in the room. Like, that's what you need to be working on. And sometimes you just get comfortable, or sometimes you have a training partner. You just kind of know the ins and outs of their game, and you think you're doing great against wrestlers, but it just happens to be that training partner that you know extremely well. So there's a lot to it, no question about it. But that's what makes this game so exciting, so frustrating, but also so exciting and interesting.
Yeah, and John, the blueprint is there. It's an easy blueprint if you could follow it. But when Kenny was fighting, we were in like an arms race. Everybody was learning. You came in with it's different today. But back then, it was like, well, what's that guy doing for strength and conditioning? Oh, that guy's going.
Yeah, we're all learning.
Like, everybody was it was on the job training, man. It was a beautiful period of time because it was a lot of fun, Kenny, back then, picking up new skill sets. Now it's different. That's why these wrestlers that come in, they've been through the grind for probably 10 years, minimal, every day. I watched the kids when we had the wrestling program at the gym. These are young kids every day grinding it out. By the time they get to 20 years old, they already have a skill set. They have the mentality. And it's easier, I think, to pick up jiu-jitsu at that point than it is going the other way around, unless but look, Jersey, some of these states, New York, they have great wrestling programs, so the blueprint is there. But I do think it comes down to human nature, and people are going to always acquiesce to what they feel good doing. You know what I mean? Just in life in general, you know what I mean? But the guys that don't, those are the guys that go to the top, man. You know what I mean? Like, even for the wrestlers, I mean, he sparred pro boxers all the time. Like, it's just, back in the day, I would be scared shit to bring guys to the PAL just to test their confidence and to see if they have the heart to do this, because they were going to get a beating. Now everything's kind of equaled up. You could go in and box with a boxer, like Kenny says, get a good wrestler, go in and wrestle with him. It's doable. It's there if you put the time in. And I think Yair just, going referencing back to that fight, just maybe he's just having a good time doing what he's doing and he doesn't care. I don't know, but you can't tell me that guy put the time in the wrestling as we would see it,
You should see him hit pads though, man, huh? Guy can fucking crack.
You said it, John. His stand-up is phenomenal. He tuned up Brian Ortega. How impressive was a win for Brian Ortega in that fashion? You look like those live odds after the first round had to be disastrous. Then after the second round, they went in Brian Ortega's favor. You saw what was going to come. He survived that storm. It's the old jiu-jitsu additive: survive first, then win. That's what he did. He got out of that first round. He came back, and God bless him, man. That was a great fight to watch, and I think there's so much people could learn from that fight. It's incredible.
Well, and there's parallels to be drawn to an average man like me, right? My comfort zone is more going out and running 4 or 5 miles, but I see much greater gains when I'm actually doing strength and conditioning 3 or 4 times a week, even though that for me is much harder. And when I am in the realm of doing that and running less, I notice major changes in my body as opposed to just burning muscle every time I go run 5 miles. And I will say too, Kenny and Raymond, if our UFC Hall of Fame matchmaker Joe Silva was still around, I can almost guarantee you he's asking Yair Rodriguez to fight Movsar Evloev or Diego Lopez or one of those guys, right? All right, now you're going to have to go through a training camp where all you do is wrestle. Otherwise, Movsar is going to eat you for dinner.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting also from the standpoint of Ortega being so good with his submissions on the ground. It's like, well, okay, Evloev, I know he's done very well against people taking them down, but it hasn't been Brian Ortega. He has one of the sharpest submission games in the UFC, period, in my opinion. So I think just that alone makes a difference. But, I posted something that I actually thought round one of that fight was a 10-8 based on the knockdown, based on the fact that I thought Ortega was hurt probably 2 or 3 times badly before that. I know he came back at the very end of that game, but he didn't really land any strikes. Is that crazy to think? I mean, it had to have at least been close to a 10-8, I thought, right? Or no?
No, I agree with you on that. I'll tell you, but before I get out of here, holy shit, that head and arm choke, the way he put that thing on, dude, that you might as well put that kid's head in a vice. That was instant, man. When I saw him, what he had, he must have cut off 10 arteries with that. I mean, that was beautiful. And he's got to have tremendous squeeze strength, I would imagine. Plus the way he put that on, damn, there was no place to go. You know that was a wrap right away.
Yeah, and I really feel good for Brian Ortega. I got to know him a little bit doing a Toyo Tires commercial shoot a couple of months ago, and you just feel good for this kid who has dealt with a lot of personal and professional adversity and the shoulder injury, of course, and missing big chunks of his fighting prime to come back in this setting in Mexico City in a rematch, lose the first round the way he did, and then to get a submission in round 3. Got to feel good for the fan favorite T-City, Brian Ortega. Raymond, can I get your thoughts on Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno in the main event?
Yeah, one quick thing, though.
Please.
The way he went out in the first fight, John, and then when he jumped up and rolled his ankle, I go, holy shit, this kid is cursed. Please don't do this. Please just go out there with one leg and just fight. I felt so bad when I saw that. I go, holy crap. But God bless him. He did a great job.
Main event.
Yeah, the main event, I don't know what the hell it was looking at. Kenny,
we'll take your honesty. We'll take your honesty.
I kind of don't know what Moreno's game plan was.
It was just okay for me.
I tell you what, listen, the other kid, Royval, tremendous pace, not a big puncher, but he gets his combos off. Knees are very dangerous. His left kick is, his left side is obviously his secret to his success, and his pace. Moreno, when he was dancing around the first round, I don't know what was going on. Yeah. I don't know. He started looking like winging punches. I mean, he did land the biggest shots. They had the bigger effect. I think they got the scorecard right, if that's what you're asking. But I kind of started after the Ortega fight. It was like anticlimactic to me. I started drifting into that fight a little bit. And I'm just being honest.
No, that's fair.
Because it wasn't one of those fights like the Ortega fight. You're engaged, like you can't move. This is this fight. There were gaps where nothing was. Royval was trying to push the pace. The other guy was moving. I got to think about that. I'm a little confused.
No, that's all fair.
I'd rather work off of Kenny.
Well, I felt like Moreno just wasn't throwing his usual combinations, never really found that flow state at all. And I know Cody's suggestive here in the chat of maybe Moreno seemed like he was sparring. I don't know, Kenny. I don't know if there's just some high level UFC performance fatigue going on. I don't know, man. I think for Moreno, he's asked a lot of himself over the last 3 or 4 years. And this just wasn't it. I know he could have won the fight and it was close, but this just wasn't it.
Yeah, I think he's still trying to figure out what allows him to compete at his best. And that's fair. Hey, listen, we all kind of have to go through that process. What allows us to get us going and bring our best. But, I've seen Moreno fired up, punching his fist, getting ready to go in there, yelling. And I've seen him just kind of calmly smiling into the octagon. I don't know if that plays a part. I don't know if it's the training. I don't know whether he's meshing with the camp or not. These are all things. And it has nothing. There's so many factors that go into a fight. It's hard to identify just one thing, especially if, I'm just looking from the outside looking in. But something wasn't working. And I think Ray kind of nailed it and said the same thing I did, Ray, to start off the show was, I don't think he even really knew of what he was supposed to be doing out there. It was I was confused. He was just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff out there and seeing what was going to stick. And if you're doing that at the highest levels of the UFC, man, you just can't. And I don't know. I think there was a little bit of confusion on the part of Moreno, how he was actually supposed to approach the fight against Royval. But Royval. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing. It could be, we got to give credit to Royval because he's got to, we can't take that away either. We're looking at Moreno. I mean, the fights with Figueiredo were phenomenal, I thought. I mean, you could see a different intensity. I just wasn't feeling that. But I don't want to, I again, when I say that, the other kid was good. He was aggressive.
Yeah.
He looks like his cardio could go forever. He's got the cuckoo gene too. He's going to keep pushing.
Yep.
And he was definitely the more consistent guy, I thought. But, I want to give Royval credit for maybe disrupting his total game plan. So I don't want to overlook that either.
That's fair.
But Moreno, you got to say we've seen him look way better in the past. That's what I don't like is that the progression didn't go forward. It looks like it slipped backwards a little bit. And he's a great fighter, but I don't know.
Historic output from Brandon Royval, even if he did miss a lot in this fight. But I don't think any fighter has thrown more strikes other than Max Holloway, who, of course, is immortalized behind me for his January 2021 triumph over Calvin Kattar over 5 rounds on Fight Island. But congratulations to Brandon Royval. And
yes,
it seems like there's not an obvious number one flyweight contender, Raymond. It's too bad your guy, Merab Dvalishvili, can't make 125. He can barely make 35.
Originally, this is 10 years ago, the game plan was he'll fight on the local circuit at 35, and then when he gets to the UFC, he'll go 25. That was definitely the original concept years ago, and I'm glad it worked out for him this way because, 25 would be tough, and he crushed it at 35. So power to him. I think he crushed it at 35, so he wouldn't have to make 25.
Right.
I think more like I think that's the guy he is, man. So.
Well, hey, this division, with respect, could use Pumi Nakuda right now.
I mean, give the kid a shot. No?
Hey, I mean, it's not up to me. I mean,
it's crazy.
I don't wield a lot of power, but it would seem to me like he would be a great signee for the UFC right now. And it's not to denigrate the top of this division. Charles Johnson and some other fighters have come to the defense of a lot of these contenders. A lot of them either are not available health-wise or there's maybe too much history, recent or otherwise, with Alexandre Pantoja. And as such, there's not an obvious flyweight title challenger. But I feel pretty convicted in saying one way or another, Pantoja is defending this belt in 9.5 weeks, and it's going to be against one of these guys. So,
yeah, which is, I mean, how many times did Figueiredo fight Moreno? 3?
4.
5? 4? It was 4. I mean,
and he's already, Brandon Moreno and Pantoja have already fought 4 times. One was an exhibition on The Ultimate Fighter, right? But those guys have already fought 4 times. And Royval has fought Pantoja twice as well.
Yeah.
So,
but
I would think by talking to Mick Maynard, even about Pumi, that he was not happy with that main event. I don't know if I'm correct on that or not.
No, I think you probably are.
And the whole landscape looks like it's like, where are we going?
Yeah. All right, Ray, before I let you go, I ordered the PFL pay-per-view this weekend because I wanted to see Johnny Eblen against our friend Impa Kasanganay.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to see this heavyweight Henan Fajeda against Ryan Bader. Size matters, right? Size matters. And I think Fajeda's size, Kenny, was honestly the reason why I bought this pay-per-view. So, Ray, could we just get a few thoughts from you on the heavyweights and potentially Francis Ngannou's next opponent in MMA, Henan Fajeda, after he disposes of Ryan Bader properly?
I want my money back because I didn't hear Kenny's voice.
That's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole different I bought that pay-per-view just to support my buddy. I almost broke the TV, to be honest with you. But the Kasanganay fight, I thought that was a good fight. That was a great fight. That was a great fight. Eblen's tough, man. I mean, he got his bell rocked, but again, the wrestling, the mentality, the grind, that's what won the fight, right? I mean, he had to take a beating, but then he did come back and win that fight. Close fight, though. What a great progression that guy's had. He's got nothing to be ashamed of. I did think he took his foot off the pedal in the 3rd round, but in a 5-round fight, you could see Eblen would just grind that, keep grinding it out. But hats off to both of those guys. I like Eblen. I really would love to see him fight at the highest level possible. You know what I mean? Because I think he deserves that. He looks good. He looks like he loves being in there. I enjoy watching him fight, man.
I do too.
He's great. And hats off to Kasanganay because he's been up and down and looks like he's got his feet under him. He's still going to have a great career moving forward. think he's still a young kid, if I'm not mistaken. And a sweetheart of a guy, John.
Oh, the best of guys, right? He's got me reading the Bible, right? Yeah. If I'm reading the Bible, you know that he has had a profound impact on me. Kenny, Johnny Eblen, our UFC producer, Zach Candido, was sort of asking me if this was a good win or a bad win in so many words for Johnny Eblen. I feel like the value of these 15 minutes may not be realized until a later date, right? But to fight someone like Impa Kasanganay, who is not going away, who's maybe a little bit bigger naturally, for Johnny Eblen to bite down on the gum shield, fight through the adversity, and finish the fight as strongly as he did. I'm very intrigued by Johnny Eblen. Ken Flo, your thoughts?
Yeah, you summed it up beautifully. I think that Eblen proved his toughness, that he isn't just a hammer. He can be the nail and find a way to come back and lean on his wrestling and his ability to grind through and win those critical rounds. And I agree with Ray there that, Impa kind of let his foot off the gas a little bit. Now, it was close enough where I think there's an argument that maybe Impa won that fight, right, to a certain extent, especially some of the damage he landed on the feet, all that stuff. But it's not a good look. Did he do everything possible to make it look better for his case? I don't know. I think he could have done some things, stayed a little bit more active. And I think that's where he got thrown off a little bit, if I'm being honest. And I also think that Impa is far better than people realize. The gains that he has made in the last couple of years on working on his game as a striker, as a grappler, as a knockout artist, all of those things have been vastly improved since he left the UFC and really had to reorganize how he thinks about the sport, how he trains in the sport. And, so I think Eblen really found out how good Impa is, but it's the champions that find a way to get it done when it's not going so well. And I think that's what Eblen proved at the end of the day. I think he's a fantastic fighter. I also think that as a fan, we kind of got robbed of seeing 5 rounds. I don't know why, I'm being honest. Why weren't these championship fights? Why didn't they have championship rounds for a championship fight? Why didn't we see 5 rounds? It made no sense to me. But anyways, so I think things would have been very interesting if we saw rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah.
But man, just kind of a head scratcher there, but it was a great fight.
Yes.
High level mixed martial arts, drama. Both guys fought extremely well. I loved the fight.
Yeah. And let me say one thing. I think Eblen grows tremendously from this fight. I think he was the type of guy, he loves being in there. He never really got rocked like that. Now he knows, you know what? I gotta square up a couple of things, and I think he's gonna come out of there for even as good as he is. He's gonna grow from that. I think for the first time, I think he hit the adversity from getting your bell rock standpoint, and he now knows that, you know what, against certain guys, I'm gonna have to approach it maybe a little differently because he's tough as a motherfucker. There's no question about that. So I think he's going to get better. And again, I'd love to see him at the highest level of competition.
Yeah. Been a good few months for American Top Team here in Coconut Creek, Florida. All right, Ray, before we let you go, talk to me about this Renan Fajeda and how you might handicap his chances against Francis Ngannou. This dude is fucking massive. That's got to count for something.
Yeah, I think so. Look, it's, Ryan Bader had a great resurrection of his career, but he's an older guy now too. So it's hard to, base anything on that. Look, with Francis, it's always this, it's the firstest with the mostest is the bestest. You got 2 big guys like that I can't see him going back and forth in the pocket, for very long, Kenny. I think they both have that knockout power at a very high level. And I think it's going to be whoever gets there first. Based on what I saw, I never really saw the other guy, based on that. Hey, before I get out of here, though,
please,
I had a kid, Levon. I can't even get his last name correct. Another, he's in that occupied land of Georgia that I guess Russia has. So whatever that, I forget what that makes him. But what an outstanding win he had, his first fight. Watch this kid. I think he's going to do something. His stand-up, Kenny, is phenomenal and exactly what we talked about. He'll be working that wrestling and jiu-jitsu. That's it. His stand-up, I don't even think could get it much better. So watch out for this kid. He had his first win. Shout out to Eric Heyer and Nazim Sadi Cuff. They did a great job. They took him up to Buffalo with the LFA. He did have a couple of hits after the bell, which was not a good look, but I could tell you, I'll vouch for the kid. It'll never happen again. He's such a nice kid in the gym, but he's been dying to fight. Nobody would take a fight with him. And I think the rage and everything just came out, and he was just like a uncaged animal. But then, he goes right back to being a humble, really, really nice kid. So,
Ray, what weight is he?
55, which is, and I thought we saw a lot of good 55ers on the UFC.
Yeah.
Some of those, that Moreno, that
Zellhuber and Manuel Torres. Yep.
There's some good guys, man.
Yep. Best weight class in the UFC. Don't ask.
Yeah. That weight class, I think, is
killer
stacked. Yeah.
Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. You can follow him on X at Ray Longo MMA and on Instagram. Just search Ray Longo. It ends 9358. Hey, really enjoying you on this new setup, my man. When's the next haircut?
Oh, we're coming. Not this week, the following week.
All right.
But that's it. What else do we got? That was it?
Yeah, you're good to go, man. Unless you got anything else.
Shout out to Will Berger. What a fine young man this guy is.
How about that?
This kid is phenomenal. You guys did the right thing. My wife loved him.
Oh, great.
My dog Lucky loved him. Everybody loved him.
How about that?
He's a really nice kid.
No, he's the best.
Anything we could do to help that guy, or I could do, you say the word, is getting done.
All right. We're trying to get him some audio work with the UFC. So Ryan Mitchell, Miles LaFosse, if you're listening,
can't go
bring him into the fold. Our underpaid production assistant, Will Berger, getting a nice shout out there in the Ray Longo Minute. Ray, get the fuck out of here. We'll talk to you next week.
Great stuff, Ray.
All right, guys, take it easy. Thanks.